So I'd like to call to order the 2015 State of the Town address on June 12th?
16th.
June 16th, week off, at 7:04. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know it was kind of short notice. I get an email out till this afternoon when we announced it a couple of weeks ago. Again, this is our fourth State of the Town. First, I want to thank everybody again for coming. I do want to acknowledge that I really feel privileged that you taking time to come in on your time off and to serve as a supervisor. It's been a great experience. It's been good, bad, but the journey continues. So I'm pretty confident. I've worked pretty hard for everybody on a lot of tasks, and I want to go over a lot of this tonight. My goal is to make sure that your investment in me and is paying fruit, and so we have some return on investment. There's a lot of things we're trying to cover, and I want to go through them tonight. Progress and growth is really kind of our focus now. When I first came into office, we basically focused on the budgets. We had the feeling at the time we were running pretty high on budgets. We compared ourselves to Florida being twice the size in every capacity, right, every category, and we were running with a higher general fund budget. Our labor was, almost twice as high as the town of Florida. So when we came in, we addressed that, and we continue to address it 2 years ago. And I think, as you'll see here, as we go through the address, we've addressed most of the costs. We've trimmed down. We're delivering the same services, as before, if not more improved. But now I think it's time to start looking a little bit more forward. Progress and growth. I think the economy has come back fully strong. It's been working its way back since 2008, but I think we can all sense that the economy is growing. People are investing in either new homes or extensions on their houses, so they're starting to spend money. New construction and home improvements are up. Real estate's moving forward. Hopefully the casino will have a positive effect on the town and the local economies. So this is what I'm going to try to address tonight. The mission statement still stays the same, from my perspective. Make Princetown and government more open and transparent. To me, again, and I've said this from day one, our town is small enough that we should be able to talk about whatever we need to talk about here in public, on TV, and exchange ideas and information. I try to take pains to explain the board actions, why it's good, what the logic was that we reached these decisions, in an effort to make the Princetown government a more efficient and responsive to the residents. And also to provide as much feedback as possible. I mean, we have some pretty good exchanges at our last few meetings, which is great. That's exactly what we want. So tonight's agenda, and I'll try to keep moving pretty quickly. I got a lot of charts, but some are pretty quick. Just to review the Princetown team, your government in action and committees. We'll touch base on the 2014-2015 year in review. And why it's 2014-2015 is typically the state of the town is about now. It's about June or May or June. So I'm really going to try to pick it up from last May. Come on, Beth. Then I'll touch on the financials, and then, you know, what I think our 2015, it should be 2015, 2016 focus and goals should be, and wrap up. So, you know, if we could save questions till the end, that would be great. And then I'll just take them, you know, as needed. Town board, our attorneys, town clerk, you got Nick Moore at Highway, you got the justice, Judge Miller, and the court clerk, Rebecca Sheehan. I did want to take 1 minute to say thank you to Irma. She's been an integral person in just the history of Princetown. 39 years as a historian, a lifelong resident, a member of the Princetown Historical Society. She's an avid painter. A lot of paintings you'll see out there in the hallway in her office are hers.
Down at Maybe Farm too, the Historical Society.
Down to the Historical Society, yep. Thousands of archives collected. We have Robert Jones in there now, but if you ever get a chance on a Tuesday or make an appointment, the archives that Irma's managed to collect for the town, you know, besides us out here in the cases, I mean, it's huge. She's got so much history in that office. You know, again, a lot of family, local histories. She designed the town seal that we see. So you're a member of the civic committee, source of county historical knowledge, and you get out to the Maybe Farm, which is kind of the prime for the county's history, and Irma's the reference. So can't really say enough about her. The best. She's had a huge influence on the town and in the county, I think. So again, thank you, Irma. Princetown government again. You got the War Department with General Meade and his staff, the Assessor's Office, Paul and Isla. I have Robert Jones highlighted in red as he's new to the government. The planner position's open. We have Denise Teets as our U.S. mail and office support. Nick Moore is building inspector, code enforcement, and Darla on dog control. And a lot of these people, again, you've seen at the meetings given the reports, but we got the planning board headed by Carolyn Plain, zoning board of appeals headed by Vic Benson and their staff, or their committees and secretaries. The board of assessment review. I wanted to take a minute, and I put some asterisks next to Donald Frederick. Sadly, Donald has passed within the last 2 weeks. He's 93, another source of great history in town. I think he knew the water works throughout Schenectady County better than everybody. I think his garage was filled with cast iron fittings and stuff. But anyway, I want to say thanks to Donald. Then we got the Princetown or PAC committee headed by Carl Barta. The Ethics Board, headed by Bill Little, Mary Sheen Joe, the Civic Committee with Mary Sue, and then we added Robert Jones on to the Civic Committee. The Zoning Review Committee, headed by Chairman Paul Golding. I'm sure we pretty much know everybody on there. Excuse me. So Princetown. As we move into 2015 and 2016, it's my thought that we should be balancing progress and growth. It's got to be a balance. Progress, it's coming. The economy is growing. You know, it's something the town board and the town should be trying to address and looking forward and growing with it. You know, when I first started here, the economy hadn't fully recovered, and the focus again was on costs and driving efficiencies. But the economy's heating up now, and again, it's my opinion that, you know, we as a town board need to be focused on this growth and this progress. ensuring our, safeguarding our resources and property values. And again, it's got to be balanced with old and new. You know, how to move forward, but yet protect the past. What I'm concerned about is that no action is actually a negative action. Meaning, if we do nothing, there's actually an action. And in my opinion, no action is actually a negative action. And it will impact probably not to the good of the town of Princetown. So a lot of this stuff that I'm going to go over, I think, is what we've been trying to integrate. You know, we've watched our financials, we've put some programs in place. There's a lot of mandates we've got to manage from the county, you know, from legal, from the state, you know, from insurance companies. So what we've tried to do is grow everything up at once. And hopefully as we go through this, you'll see where a lot of the actions of the boards, the volunteers, and the committees have put together, it's all integrated, and we're trying to move this forward all at once. Again, with the balance of you know, monitoring the growth and progress. One of the first ones we had was solar, which was a very good story, but last week our company, US Light Energy, declared bankruptcy and filed for Chapter 11. So the effect on the town right now is business as usual. There's no change. We'll continue to pay our bills. They're in Chapter 11, so I mean somebody's taking over and monitoring their business operations until they can restructure, and then we'll go from there. What's interesting is that technically the contract is broken now. So, you know, I don't think we should do anything. We should, you know, it's in my opinion, we'll talk to the board and to Mike Cuevas, but technically the contract is broken. So we can, in my opinion, the advantage is us. Worst case is we do nothing and it just goes on. US Light gets restructured to a new company and business as usual. Worst case is we have to have the ability to say, pull the gear out, we don't want it anymore, we want to go with a new company with better rates. So right now, in my opinion, the advantage is the town. So right now we're trying to get in contact with US Light and Energy. We just got a letter today. I think the board should see it in their mailbox, pretty much just announcing what we just said here. But so no change, but it's something we want to, I wanted to address. The state police contract is another one. So we met with the state police, you know, 6 weeks ago maybe, and they're extremely happy with our rent arrangements, and in particular on how we respond to their needs and services. So kudos to Lou Esposito's, because he's been a major influence on this. Our contract is ended. So we're without a contract now. Again, it's business as usual. But the final draft is in process. It's not been sent out. Right now, we've talked about a 10% initial increase over the rent, and then 3% year over year after that. So why is this good? It's our building. Again, Lou Esposito has done a great job on managing the repairs and the ongoing operations of it. And the state police have been very happy. But the good news is we can continue to invest money into our buildings, So by, you know, with just the cost of living increases since the last time we had a contract, and plus the 3% year over year, we feel pretty confident that we're not going to go into our pockets to keep up on the maintenance of the building. We sent in a budgetary repair estimate, so the reason we're going to do this is to give them a layout over 5 years, which is the term of the lease, on what we think some projects would cost. Again, they're just budgetary, they're probably high, but we want them to be high because, again, if he doesn't do, let's say, painting for 4 years, painting today and the painting in 4 years is going to be obviously a different estimate. So when we build our budgets now, you know, these estimates will include ongoing budgets. So if, again, you know, snow and ice, NYMER, which is the New York Municipal Insurance which actually we're a member of, parking lot repair. So we're gonna be adding some things into the contract that wasn't there before, and into our budget line, that hasn't been there before. For example, NYMER is about $5,000 a year to insure their building. And it's like $15,000 for all of Princetown, it's probably divided up 3 ways. 5,000, and this is just very ballpark. 5,000 for water, 5,000 for state police, and 5,000 for this building. So we're going to include that into our budgets going forward, so we should be able to build a more accurate budget when we go into 2016. So the action right now is it's the final state police and town board approval once we get the contracts back. Hazard Mitigation Committee, they met in February and I think again in March with the county, and are finalizing the integration of the town and county plans. So I actually really like this committee. I think they got some great stuff coming up. The integration of the hazard committees is the county comes in and identifies areas of town that are high hazard areas. For example, on Kelly Station Road, that's a high hazard area. You know, just because every time it rains heavy, you know, there's probably a good chance that the road's gonna get washed out. So we identify a few spots that up in the north, there's a couple slopes that are pretty steep, so that's a high hazard area. Up on maybe Mariahville Road, North Kelly, we've had some tornado damage up there, so another area of a hazard. So what we take this and we integrate it with the county plans, and the county starts integrating it with fire response, emergency management, and the UCC. So right now we're waiting on feedback from, we submitted our version of our areas of concern, and we're waiting for the feedback from the county. What I'm kind of excited about is the phase 2 is to build our own town-specific needs, which are typically above and beyond the county and state resources. What I'm hoping to do is to have a local town emergency call out that's integrated to the county. So if the county sees a tornado warning come, the county gets notified right away. They notify, like for example, the fire departments. I'd like to get us, and through Twitter or somehow, to notify the residents that, hey, if you're in your house, there's a possible hazard coming. Phase 2 would be this. I'd like to apply for a grant to make town hall a welcome center. So in case of a snowstorm or serious power outages, if we had a generator here, wire up the building, bring it up, heat it up, and make it a place where, even for temporary, for 24 hours, that people could come, whether it's seniors or whoever it is, come into town hall and have a place to stay until the power comes back on or the emergency is declared over. So some of these are some of the actions I'm asking the hazard committee to work with. So I'm pretty excited about the hazard mitigation committee. Office of State Controller audit. Last Friday, there was an article in the paper, so that we were the only town out of 10 audited so far this year that received a positive audit from the controller. We had 2 auditors that came in, spent over 5 weeks in here, plus remote time, and the result was of the audit was no findings, 0 findings. So it's a great news story. I was confident when the announcement was made. I was confident, extremely confident, that we were going to be found clean. As a matter of fact, the auditors made a note in the audit that they complimented the town of Princetown on their design and process on how we audit vouchers and make payments on our bills. So again, a pretty good result, and again, great effort by the clerk's office, the bookkeeper, so Sandy and Isla specifically did a great job. Time Warner Cable. So this has been a kind of an ongoing story. Obviously started with Princetown Cable. Everybody liked Princetown Cable. I liked them. They're right up the street from me. But they sold to Time Warner, and this year our contract would have expired with Princetown Cable. But since Time Warner bought them, now the contract's with Time Warner. So Time Warner asked us to hold off for a little while they finished the merger with Comcast, which they announced last year. Well, in April this year, the merger with Comcast was called off. And then a month later, Charter, which is another cable company, announced plans to merge with Time Warner. So we're back to kind of where we were. We have reached out again to Time Warner saying, hey, when can we move forward with our, with our contract? Right now, it's still business as usual. I know it's expensive, very expensive. I'm not sure we have much say in it, but one of the future plans I'd like to do when we do get to the contract phase is there are areas of town that don't have service. So we'd like to extend service to those people when time comes. Now, there's probably a way we're going to have to pay for it or work it out with the cable company, but so that's some of the plans of Time Warner. The really good news is we have our attorney, Mike Cuevas, who went to battle with Time Warner and won for Glenville. So that may be a good news story or maybe a bad news story, I don't know. But, so that's the status on Time Warner Cable. E-code. We've gotten over this over and over. It's paid for, it's in full, it's done. Right now we voted no to a public hearing. Personally, I think it's a great tool. I can show the Rotterdam E-code real quick. It's a great tool. I'm sure probably 90% of us in the room can Google. You just go to Google and ask a question, boom, the answer comes up, or a bunch of answers. And that's what E-code is. You can go in there and put pool, and they'll come up with 34 references, in the code of pool or fence, whatever the question would be. So E-code is kind of on hold. So one of the other items we need to, in my opinion, is to continue to challenge is costs. When we get to the financials, you'll see, where we are financially, and we're okay. There's no reason to panic. But again, we need to be watching what we're doing. If we're looking for growth and progress and how to manage it and work with it, then some of the things we need to be looking at is the aging technology within the town hall. With the aging technology comes increased maintenance costs. And one of the bigger problems, it's not a problem, but when I met with the NYMER insurance agent to go over the year's insurance budget, the question was, do you have security? Do you have a firewall? And the answer was, no, we don't. We're careful, we're trying to manage the data as much as possible, but we don't. And as I'm sure everybody saw their news lately, supposedly China broke into the federal government and took a bunch of information. I'm not saying it's going to happen here where Princetown is probably not worth the effort, but there is sensitive data here. And this is one of the areas when it's talking about where action needs to be integrated. One of the other items we're going to be talking about here is records management. Now, we have an updated records management policy, and it's how we capture and manage our records. Moving forward, especially as we get into a little deeper into the technology, it's going to be key that the documentation and how we capture emails, documentation, records, everything is married to the technology. So this is where I'm saying, we try to bring things up all at once and make sure everything's integrated together. So what we did was we developed a 5-year plan to help mitigate the desktops, computers we have now to more of a service-based platform with firewall protection. I'm sure everybody has their own laptops or towers at their house. So your programs, your Microsoft programs, all reside on that tower. What we're proposing is to take, and of course every tower has its own set of licenses and you have to manage it, you have to make sure viruses are updated, you have to manage each and every tower. What we're proposing is take the Microsoft and put it on a server and let everybody work off a terminal. So there's only one Microsoft to manage and one set of places where you can manage, your viruses, etc. There's an exception to it that there are a couple programs we use, specifically the Bookkeeper and Sandy, the VAST programs, where they have to be run off the desktops. And that's why we're doing it over a 5-year plan, because we want to migrate over in stages computers. Now VAST and I can't remember, is it X? What's Isla's software?
X something.
And so Isla's got a certain software that she runs the payroll and everything off of. But their commitments from those companies is that in 5 years, they're going to move to a more of a service-based or a window or a cloud-based software. So in 5 years, we can then take Sandy and Isla's and the bookkeepers, and then everybody can work off the servers. Again, the advantage to the town is you have one place for maintenance, one place for updates. Everything will be, all your documentation will be there, won't be on the individual basis, individual server or towers. And again, if we integrate this technology and this process with records management, and it should work out pretty good. And I'll talk a little more about records management when we get there, but again, the expected results is a decrease in operating costs, an increase in cybersecurity. So right now it's presented to the board. I know we've got budgets to look at, but it's probably one of the challenges that we need to look at as we move forward. I think right now at least 50% of our computers are on XP, Windows XP, and every time you fire it up, it comes up and says, this isn't protected anymore by Microsoft. So 2015 challenges. As we get into the to the financials, you'll see that, and I'm sure everybody knows, because just about every town, county is facing the same challenge, and that's decreasing revenues. So one action we've taken is we've worked with the county on a shared resources and efficiency plan. So we've contributed to the increases in efficiencies. This is a plan, we could have joined it individually or joined it with the county. The idea being that if a county reaches an efficiency number, I think it's 1.2 million with the ballpark, in documented efficiencies, then the result is the county or the state will give a tax rebate somewhere along the lines of the tax or property or school tax rebate that you got last year. Might not have been big, but it wasn't an increase. So that is one of the actions we've taken to try to address, decrease in revenues. So we have some other thoughts that we want to work on, again, specifically along the line of shared resources, whether it be maybe the planner or the code enforcement. Some of the resources we may be able to share with other municipalities, being Rotterdam or Dwaynesburg, maybe even Schenectady. So pretty good news story. I don't have anything more on it. We just filed it. So we should know in a few months where it is. I mean, we literally just finished getting passwords and pushing our applications into the state and into the county. So some of the other challenges are going to be mandates. In particular, we have some, the issue here is some policies and procedures are out of date. We met last week with our workers' compensation representative, and he asked a few key questions. Where's your employee policy? Where's your records management policy? Where's your violence in the workplace? Actually, the discrimination is supposed to be another bullet down, but where's your discrimination policies? So right now, we have an employee policy. It's a draft version. It's ready to be reviewed by the town board. Records management policy is ready for review and approval, and violence in the workplace is ready for review and approval. So we still need to work on a discrimination and then an overall employee policy. Surprisingly, these are actually requirements by law. So these aren't necessarily, the glory or high visibility projects we need to work on, but they need to be worked on. This is some of the challenges to the town board. As a government, it's key that we, of all people, should have our documentation in place. I'm sure you've seen it at a lot of the town board meetings. I try to keep the action ready, so I try to keep it current, but here's some actions I need to, or at least I would suggest we focus on, is an escrow plan. An escrow plan, especially if we're talking about progress and growth in the community, we're going to see some growth, we're going to see some subdivisions, we're going to see some development. We actually have a problem with one applicant that hadn't paid, so we've got to go to court. The escrow plan is a suggestion, if you have depending on the size of your development, development, is how much money you put up front into an escrow account. And then the town, as we go through our process, whether it's planning board, et cetera, we'll draw down on the escrow plan and the escrow account. And if it reaches a certain level, then we'd ask the applicant to re-up more money into the account. When the project's all complete, we'll cut the check, with proper documentation back to them and say, okay, thanks. I think it's a more efficient way, it protects the town. We're not putting out money. As it stands now, when an applicant comes into the planning board or any of the boards, we put the money out for the lawyer, we put the money out for the engineers, and any expenses. So it comes out of the town's pocket first. And then we need to spend time working with the applicants and lawyers, et cetera, to recoup the money. My suggestion is going to be, we're not talking about a deck or anything small like that, but a major plan or a major effort is to put up, a couple $1,000s into the escrow account, and then we'll draw down on it. That'll be the same thing. We'll document it, how much the lawyer was for the month, how much the engineers were for the month. We'll give you a copy of the bank statement, and that's how we'll capture the money. But that way there's no money out of our pocket initially. I would strongly suggest training for the staff and officials. Records management, we're working on the employee policy, but there are some areas, zoning, other areas, financials that I suggest we get some training. And for the staff, again, we have to try to train the staff on discrimination, violence in the workplace. All these things are required by the state. The water purveyor law, that's been on the books for a while. I put that up there. It's still the #1 item on the comprehensive plan is to address our water resources. I'd like to see, we've had some complaints about speed limits. I'd like to see some letters written to the county, try to work it down, see what we can do to ease some of the concerns of our local residents. We talked about integrating the town warning system with the county and fire departments. Again, that's probably that's an action for the hazard mitigation committee. Again, we talked about grants. I'd like to see if we can get a generator for town hall, again, just as an emergency center. I'd like to see it, try to get a defibrillator put into town hall. And we do have a lot of meetings here, whether it's seniors or just Girl Scouts or parties. I think it's a good idea to have one hanging on the wall. And then the big thing is the shared services. We need to try to figure out how we can share services with other municipalities. It'll be cheaper for us, not only as far as benefits go, et cetera, training. I think it's the way we need to move forward. We're a small town. To have somebody hired specifically to address a specific job is going to be a little bit spendy. Where we can defer some of the costs, whether it's training, mileage, phones, cell phones, et cetera. So this is one of the areas that I'd like to focus on as we go over the next 18 months or so. Just a couple of highlights here. The Civic Committee, they had a town-wide garage sale. It was a good success. We have a family movie night coming up. That's been pretty good over the last couple of years. I hope to expand on that. The PIAC had its Earth Day. That was great. Carl made some presentations, or set up some presentations for Red Cross. I'd like to set up a Red Cross presentation again, maybe for the seniors and also for the town. It was actually a very good presentation. He made it to the Hazard Mitigation Committee. It wasn't what you thought, at least it's not what I thought. It was actually, there was presentations on how to pack a bag to get out if there's an emergency, what you need to put in the bag, how to fight a kitchen fire, how to fight a garage fire, what kind of chemicals you should be recycling or getting rid of, or not stored in your house, but maybe in your garage. So it was actually a pretty good presentation. What I'd actually like to do too, and it's another action for the Hazard Mitigation Committee, is to make some videos that we put onto their websites on how to fight a kitchen fire, how to fight a garage fire, for example. What's the difference between an electrical fire and a chemical fire? How to get rid of chemicals. So again, a couple actions I'm hoping we can move forward with. So finances, the town board basically is like the stewardship. When I first came in, I still considered this, our budget is not that complicated. I mean, it's complicated, it's different than our checkbook, but we should be monitoring as if it's our own. We want to focus on reducing spendings, increase efficiencies. Now, increased efficiencies can be done a few ways. Again, it's all for the safeguard of the future of the town. We want to make sure we continue to remain, our financial stability. We need to increase revenues, and with strategic investments, we can increase some efficiencies. So I'm going to touch on the 5-year comparison. You've seen these before. They're interesting to me, but probably kind of dry to a lot of people. Then we'll go over the 2014 budget versus actuals. I put the water department in the back, with respect to George. There is a couple of key charts back there with the new rates, especially for everybody in the water districts. We refinanced 2 years ago, so you're starting to see the rates decrease, and obviously the loans are going down, but there have been pretty significant drops in the rates per $1,000 in the districts. So I'll try to be brief on this, but I'll go as fast as you want or as slow as you want. I know this is probably some of the more important pieces. So for myself, when I look at financials, you have to have a comparison. What are you comparing it to? When I first came in, I did a comparison against Florida because it was the only town that was kind of close to our characteristics. Pretty rural. They're bigger than us, population-wise, land size, et cetera, but it was something to compare to. So now I start looking, going back and compare against the past 5 years. So the fund equity start, that is the opening statement on January 1st of every year. So that's like your checkbook. When you open your checkbook up and say, what's my balance January 1st? Equity fund at the end of the year, EOI, is what's my balance at the end of the year. At the end of the fiscal year, what's my balance in my checkbook? So, and you can see that over the last few years, we've increased the fund equity start and fund equity end of year by, well, they're both in positive. It's kind of misleading there a little bit, but you can see that year over year, you know, we started at 268, we ended at 323, 323, 345, 345, and 365. So the checkbook balance in these terms, I want to be careful because I'm just using it as an example. The checkbook balance has increased. But as you can see, you know, our revenues have dropped fairly significantly. Our revenues are down by 32% over a 5-year period. Pretty drastic. You know, I know a lot of the communities and a lot of states are all feeling the same. The good news is we've dropped our expenditures by 36%. So we've matched as the revenues are going down, our expenditures have gone down too. So we've made a good effort to continue to reduce our expenditures as the revenues have dropped. The budgets have stayed, you know, a little bit the same. You know, we had a little increase in 2014 because we tried to put a little bit more money into the budget line for highway. That's why that one increased. Otherwise, there's, you know, I and the board were trying to say, when we set a budget, set it as tight as possible to what you're really going to forecast with no fluff in there. The theory on that is that if you do go over budget, fine, come back to the board and ask us for more money. But, you know, give us a reason why. Was it a special project? You know, what's the reason? It's more of a lessons learned. What did we learn, you know, and why do we need to get more money in? So, again, at the equity fund or our checkbooks, we started this year at 365, 953. We hope to increase it again. But again, the revenues are dropping. Again, the good news is the expenditures are dropping too. So we've managed our budget well. Another snapshot, just, you know, looking just at the revenues and the expenditures. You can see the revenues are dropping, and so are the expenditures. One bad news is there in 2011, where the expenditures exceeded the revenues. So the town board has done a great effort on managing, you know, the decreasing revenues versus, you know, the expenditures. I did a comparison on 2014 against what we budgeted versus the actuals. I put it up there. It's important. It's important. Not critical, but it's important. Overall, you know, we came under the budget, except for legal. That was over by $1,000 or so. It's important, but again, in my opinion, we need to be matching and monitoring our expenses versus the revenues. Because just like your own paycheck, you know, if you bring home $100 in your paycheck, if you spend $110, that's bad. Then you can set your budget, but once you start exceeding what your payroll is, you know, you're going to go into trouble. So an overall fiscal review, when we refinanced our water bonds, we started out with an A+ rating with stable outlook. Last year we jumped up to an A++, a double A+ with stable outlook. Again, financially, as our financial credit goes, we've got a very good rating. But here's where I'm going to say to everybody, you know, with the revenues dropping, there are some stress points that, in my opinion, we need to focus on. And I want to be very clear to, you know, to everybody, you know, we, the town board, are continuing to focus on this, but in my opinion, these are stress points. And, you know, if we're looking forward for growth and stuff, these are some areas we need to concentrate on. Unified Communications Center, or the 911 Center. It didn't cost us, well, for all the years, you could make a 911 call and there's no cost to the town because the PSAPs were in Rotterdam, Schenectady, Glenville. Each town had it, with the exceptions of Princetown and Waynesburg. They didn't charge us for that. The Unified Communication System was part of the shared resources where they wanted to combine it and have one communication center for call-outs in 911 in the county. So technically, it's a good idea. You know, one place, one communication center, one 911. You can monitor the county, you know, from fires, from emergencies, ambulance, etc. The problem is they wanted us to join, and there's a cost to it. You know, we used to not pay anything, and now we have to pay. The other option was not to join the center, and we really would have had to either farm out or form our own call center. So we kind of twisted our arm, you know. So for the first couple of years, the cost was nothing while they built the center. This year, it was $10,000. Next year, it's going to be more. And it's going to continue to grow. So that's an area I'm considering a stress point because we don't have a voice in it. We have 1% out of 100 in a vote. I think skilled resources and payroll is an area we should be focusing on. As the town grows and we get progress in the town, and you know, it's going to be important. And you know, let me back up. So some of our resources in town are getting old, including myself. But to replace those resources is going to be, I think, a little bit expensive. They're skilled resources. These are part-time jobs. So to ask people to come in, you know, and pick up without a transition, or even with a transition, you know, they're going to have to be skilled resources, and that's going to affect payroll. So I'm suggesting we start working on a strategy. Say, how do we address this? Again, shared services may be one way to do it. There's technology out there that can take over some of these resources. But I need to work with the town board to say, hey, how do we want to address this in a 3 to 5 year, 7 year, 10 years? Because payroll is our #1 expenditure. Strategic investments, again, I think for future cost management, there are some software programs and stuff out there. You have to invest up front, but they pay in the long run. Technology typically pays off in greater efficiencies in the long run. I'm not an expert at all in Microsoft Excel, but it's a really super powerful tool, and there are programs out there that are really super powerful that just end up being a data entry for the resource for the town. So again, I'm suggesting to the town board that begin to look at strategic investments to drive future cost management in the future. Again, 5-7 years, 3, 5, 7 years down the road. Highway and roads. We had a quote the other night. It's $112,000 for 3 roads, or 2 roads really. That's a pretty big number. The challenge is, and I've heard this from a few people saying, it's 3 miles of road. The whole town has to pay for it. It's a big number. So I'm thinking the town board, or we need to kind of figure out some kind of strategy. But for the future, it's something we should definitely be starting to put together some plans on how do we address in the future. We have some money this year. We should be able to do most of it. I'm not suggesting we do all of it, but I'll review that with the board. But going forward, how do we address it? The winter and summer maintenance programs are going to get more expensive, especially with whether we believe in the weather phenomenons or not. The winter maintenance gets expensive, and the summer roads maintenance. But I do want to highlight that right now, and I'm not sure, but there's no plans for a town tax. There is no plans for a town tax. There haven't been, there is none, not that I'm aware of, in any shape or form. We really would have had to declare it last year when we were doing the budget. You know, right then we would have known, do we have the money or not? So there's no plans for a town tax. So just going into the future, you know, progress and growth, I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, tomorrow we wake up, it's gonna be a new day, and there's progress. You know, we have a developer in town is itching to move forward. The economy's heated up, it's moving forward. The casino's here, there's progress, there's growth. Question is the town prepared? You know, are we prepared financially? Do we have our financial plans in order? You know, we talked about skilled and trained resources. Are all our laws, policies, and procedures ready to protect the residents? Are they ready to protect the town? And are we ready to manage the progress and growth? It's a good news story. It's a really good news story, but just want to make sure that, you know, at the end of the day, we're protecting, you know, our residents in our town and our properties. So, again, I just want to touch base on, I've been, you know, from the day I walked in, a strong proponent of open and transparent government. If I can't talk about it here, then I have nothing to talk about. Fiscal management, I think the town board and us are doing well in it. You know, I think we need to continue to focus on it, especially as we move forward, especially with the decreased revenues. More involvement, better representative government. Even though maybe our ZRC meetings and town board meetings lately have been a little bit more involvement, but it's actually a good news story, because I think that's exactly, this is what I said from the beginning, this is the democratic process. You know, it's good. It's good. It's just good. It's a good exchange of ideas, and I can completely support it. So that's the presentation. I know I went pretty quick, folks. I'll take questions now. Again, there's a lot of charts in the back. I'm going to go through them I don't know if real quick, but there's some demographics for the town. There's the water department last year's results, this year's planned results, or planned repairs, the water budgets, there are the final rates. So that's a good news story. General fund, that's our budget for this year. Fund equity chart, 5-year comparison. So I don't want to bore you with that, unless you want me to. Go ahead and talk about it. So at this point, I will open it up for questions. Yes?
Rose Marcus Pattersonville. If I interpreted what you were saying in conjunction with the screen, we have paid in full, this is regarding the ECO.
Yep.
We've paid in full
Correct.
to be part of ECO, $5,000. Is that correct?
E-code program is paid for.
So to become involved with the ECO will cost the town nothing.
Correct. We have to go through public hearing, we have to formally pass the laws we've
But
changed.
the planning board has spent some time preparing to transfer into ECO. Is that right?
Well, it's not the planning board.
Zone, town board?
Well, it's the laws of our book, and I have a book with me. The laws.
Zoning laws.
Yeah, the zoning laws.
Okay.
All our laws.
Okay.
All our laws is the law.
So then my question is simple. It's paid for, it's a good thing, it's progress. Why aren't you doing it?
I will take that question and ask maybe the next planning board, town board meeting, ask for the board to address it.
I'd like to go on the record with that question. Why have we paid $5,000 and not used it?
Well, it's actually 15,000.
15,000. So
15,000.
I didn't have my glasses on.
Yeah.
Even better, my question should have been
Yeah.
less.
We actually, you know, again, I think it's a great program. That's E-Code for Rotterdam. So if you type in
I should wear my glasses.
pool, it's going to come up with all kinds of results. We spent 15,500, 22 results for pool. So they reference the different zoning chapters or chapters in their code over zoning, you know, pool. So we put pool and fence. It's probably going to expand it, but that's how it works. It's Google. It's Google. It's a search engine, and then the documents are on the website. We spent again, I applaud the town board. We spent the 15,000 over 3 budgets, so it was a minimum impact to the budgets. You know, the first year was 5,000, the second year was 5,000, last payment in December was 5,500. So it's paid, it's done. So, okay.
So I would really like, as a citizen of Princetown, I'd like to know why we spent 15,000 and aren't utilizing.
Thanks, Rose. Additional questions? Hey.
Hello, my name is Victoria Candida, and I'm located up on Curry Bush. My family and I are some of the poor souls that do not have cable, internet, or television. And the other companies that would offer us internet would either be satellite or like a Verizon hotspot, and they would only offer us 10 gigabytes of data per month. And my family, you know, we have 4 phones, cell phones, 3 computers, and it's just simply not enough internet. So I was wondering what the timeline was as far as getting it to members of the town that aren't in the reach.
I would think it's probably at least a year.
Okay.
At least a year, especially on your property.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's certain rules or by government, when the government made contracts with the cable companies, that when cable and internet start coming out, and even Verizon, it's how many houses per mile.
Mm-hmm.
Is really the kind of, it's like, if you're within, it's like 7 houses per mile, then they're required to deliver it. If it's not, they step out. So what we're gonna try to do is ask them, like, kindly, like, can you provide service to these guys? Now, Verizon goes into a lot of towns like Gilderland, and when they run their fiber around, Gilderland actually charges them per pole. So every time they hook up to the pole, they pay. And I'm sure it gets passed down to the customers, but that's the way it is. Because technically, National Grid owns most of the poles. So what I'll try to work in, what I'm going to suggest to that slide, is we may have to put some costs into the next cable contract where we can provide and build up a bank and then invest it, and help maybe defer some of the costs from the cable companies to provide the fiber or the coax to the houses. Additional questions? Does anybody have any questions on the financials?
I think you're doing a great job.
Well, it's actually almost right on the hour, so I know, again, I talked to those folks. Again, I want to thank the board for their patience. I think we got a lot of work to do, but it's, again, I think it's just all for the best of the town and to move us and prepare for the future. There's my number. I'm sure a lot of you already have it, but if not, feel free to contact me. You got my email, hopefully most of you anyway. And let me know how I can help. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, and I appreciate it.